should I take notes? Just you definitely can. I will post this on YouTube after, and I'll actually try to split it. So we'll have the Kahoot one, and then we'll have the notes. So if you fall behind, no worries. You can go back and rewatch this. All right. Up first, we are talking about reference maps and thematic maps. So you have a lot of maps in this course. And when we're talking about maps, you want to make sure that you have an understanding of these two. Now, reference maps are just informational maps, remember. These are going to show boundaries, the toponym. Real quick, put in the chat and I'll try to pin it. Do you know what a toponym is? So what is that vocab term? So I'll try to pin it for you there. So they show those things. Those will be reference maps. An example would be like a topographic map would be an example of a reference map that shows elevation changes, those lines of contour. Those would all be reference maps. Now, the other type of map that you need to make sure you have an understanding of is thematic maps. Remember, these are going to show a theme, hence thematic. And they are going to have data. Oftentimes, we're displaying here quantitative data, so things of that nature. Real quick, boom, yeah, top of the name of a place, place name of the place, name, awesome, cool, yes, awesome, great job. We're going to do a lot back and forth on different things, so hopefully this kind of helps off. What we're going to do now, so those are the two categories of maps. What I want to now focus on is different types. And I'll put some examples up on the screen so you can kind of see. So first is a choropleth map. You definitely, for all these types, and these are all thematic maps, want to be able to read these maps. There's a very, very high chance that you're going to get an FRQ with the stimulus component, which could be a choropleth map or a multiple choice question. You might have to identify, you might have to describe, you might have to be able to explain different themes or things we're seeing. So make sure you can read these maps. Make sure you can also understand that scale and scale of analysis. We'll be reviewing those a little bit later. But choropleth maps are going to be maps such as these that are going to have a range of data. And oftentimes they're shading things. Now, remember, depending on our scale, that is going to impact the detail that is in that data. As we continue to change our scale from a small scale map to a large scale map, we're going to be able to see more data. Let me know in the chat, and I'll try to pin it, for a small scale or large scale. What is the difference between those? Those are two words and concepts that a lot of times people will mix up on. So let me know in there and I will try to pin it. All right, but I'm going to go to the next one and I will come back and pin that comment. So another thematic map we have is a dot density map. So this would be an example of a dot density map. Remember, these are going to have a specific point and it's showing that precise location. And we're looking at very specific data. Now, the one thing that could get confusing here, depending on our scale, essentially it could be hard to read and understand exactly. For example, maybe I'll make it full screen so it's easier to see. Right here, we can see this is from the 2010 census, and we're looking at the racial dot map. So census data here, this would be quantitative. We're looking exactly where people are living. So remember, we have quantitative and qualitative. One thing that is a little confusing with this is because so many people are living in these areas, it can actually be kind of hard to see exactly where people are living because it's blending in. Some of these communities and neighborhoods, it all looks like just one solid color. Now, if we change our scale and we zoom in, we'd be able to see more of the individual there. All right. We got a couple people. Let's see here. Here's one. Large scale is zoomed in. Small scale is zoomed out. Global and local scale. Large scale would be more local. That would be correct. So the large scale is going to be showing more detail, but less of the Earth's surface. So that is something to remember. Small scale is going to be showing that larger area, but less details. So that is something that happens. Remember, as we change our scale, the amount of data we can see, the detail in it does change. And that's going to be important when we're looking at different data and themes across this test. And one thing to note too, on the topic of scale, and we'll talk about scale more in depth later, questions oftentimes are going to ask you for a local or a national or a regional, or I'll ask you about a political, an environmental, a social, something thematically. And you want to make sure that your answer connects to that. All right, next one is a graduated symbol map. These can sometimes be confusing because, well, you can see here, we have these different kind of symbols that are representing either the presidential election or the North America ski top snowfall, and they overlap. And so it can be confusing to read some of these. These aren't as common on the AP test. They definitely have some components to it. Dot density and choropleth, though, I want to make sure you are familiar with and that you're ready for those. Those are definitely ones you want to be familiar with. Up next is an ice line map. So again, we have contour lines. We have these lines that connect, and they're showing similar data. So you can see here when we're looking at this one, we have for our weather, for example, we can see kind of the different temperatures are arranged here in this manner. So isoline maps, we're showing geographic areas that have similar values kind of connected there. All right, up next is another map that I want to make sure that you spend some time with, and it is a cartogram. Now, one thing that I have done or noticed with my students is oftentimes when showing a cartogram on our first test, at least at the start of the year, the distortion would throw them off. For example, if it was asking about different countries and we're looking at which ones are the most prevalent in organic farming or tractor use, or if we're talking about which one has the highest population density, and we're looking at a cartogram, well, we're going to see distortion in the shape of the different places, these countries, these states. And so remember, the larger the area, so if we quick go back here, the larger, in this case, these bubbles for Georgia, the bigger the population is. The smaller, then the less people that are living there. So cartogram maps are distorting areas to show visually data, and we're changing the geographic size. So that would be important to understand for these when reading it. So look out for that, because sometimes you'll see where we'll have areas that you actually can't even see because they don't have that much of whatever data we're talking about in variable. All right, our next thematic map, and then we're going to be done with thematic maps, is a flow line map. And I realize I am going fast. The goal of this is kind of a quick review, get this stuff in your head. So flow line maps, one of the things here, we are looking at movement. And one thing I want to highlight is for here, we can see exports and imports. Let me know in the comments, in the chat, what's the difference between export and import, and I'll pin your comment. So let me know about exports and imports. So here we can see top 15 U.S. trade partners. Again, we're seeing movement. In this case, we're looking at goods. We're looking at the value of different goods going from one location to another, or one place, one state to another. So thematic maps here, all are showing these visual components. We're looking at some type of data. One more thing with maps is map projections that you could see. There's a bunch of different projections that you want to kind of be familiar with. The Mercator has been asked about multiple times. The Robinson has. Generally, remember, map projections, the big thing, there is always distortion. Some way, shape, or form, there's going to be distortion occurring. And generally, it's going to be in the shape, the area, the distance, or the direction. So depending on what we're trying to do with our map, we might use different map projections. For example, the Mercator used to be used a lot for naval expedition because it was great at getting from point A to point B. But we know it significantly distorts the land masses. Like Greenland is definitely not this large. Africa is way larger. So there's definitely some distortion that is occurring there. All right. Trying to catch up on the chat. I didn't realize how far back I was to see if anyone got the question there. Oh, there we go. Okay, I just moved all the way up. Export leaves, imports take in. That can work. So that would work. Exports is when something's coming out of a country, imports coming in. Yes. So remember, E for exit, exports are exiting, I for in, they're coming into the country there. Okay, cool. All right, next one is a couple different things that you need to know with vocab. So the next kind of part that's going in with Unit 1, vocab, you're not going to have a ton of questions that are just define this term, but understanding vocab is important because then you can understand what the question's asking. And some of these questions on this test the College Board knows that certain terms students get mixed up. So odds are you're going to see those terms together. They're trying to see, do you really understand that concept? So for example, when we're looking at maps and we're talking about different places, you have to understand the difference between absolute distance and relative distance, or absolute direction and relative direction. So remember, absolute distance is looking at the exact distance between two places. Relative is approximate. So, for example, if you're driving somewhere, the exact miles between where you're going, that would be absolute distance. But if, let's say, you have a child or a friend in the back of the car who just continuously says, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" And you're like, "Yeah, we'll be there in 5 minutes." That would be more relative distance. We're kind of, or sorry, I'm mixing that up, but it would work actually for relative distance. Or if you're just giving a guesstimate, like, oh, I think we're 2 miles away or this or that, we're projecting. It's an approximate measure. For direction, remember, absolute direction would be the exact direction we are going. And then relative, we are going to be using essentially by basing it off of our surrounding area. So I'm like, oh, I'm south of this area. We're given a relative direction, but it's not the absolute with that compass rose and the things we'd be focusing on there. Okay, next thing I want to do is see for some of our different terms that come up, and these terms are going to come up throughout the whole course. Let me know. We'll put this up. Is this clustered, dispersed, or linear? So take a second. Clustered, dispersed, or linear? What do we got? Also, we had a poll going. It looks like unit 5 and 6, according to you guys, are the hardest. All right, to expedite this. All right, I just started a poll. So vote in the poll. Is it clustered, dispersed, or linear? These are looking at settlement patterns. This is going to come up a little bit in this unit in vocab when we're talking about places. It also is going to come up in other units, particularly agriculture. All right, 96% of people have gotten it. It is dispersed. We can see these are spaced out. They are not clustered together. There's definitely space between there. All right, up next, what is this one? Clustered, dispersed, or linear? What do we got? So we have another settlement here. We're looking at different things that is happening. Got people saying linear. This would be linear. So you can see we kind of have a line going on down the row there. All right. Up next, what would this be? What do we got? Next one here. Ooh. Linear would work again. Yeah, we can see we have this kind of line going all down the main road. So all the houses, the farms here are all going along this road there. So this would all be linear. Yes, linear. Linear. All right, next one up. Here we go. Last one of our terms here. Take a shot. And I tricked you. I apologize. I tricked you. I didn't mean to trick you. We got clustered. Clustered. Yes, this is clustered. So one thing you do want to get used to on this test is being, we'll quick end this poll. Got so many tabs open and switching between so many things. Let me know too if I'm going too fast, too slow. I don't know the pace. This is the first time I've done where we're doing like review before like a Kahoot. I want to make sure though this is worth your time. So definitely let me know or comment on the video after this too, and I'll look through that. So one of the things with these, when we're observing a cultural landscape or we're using photo analysis, when we're looking at things, look for different patterns in data, in what we're seeing, how are things arranged, what resources are being used, what land use patterns. That'll help gauge what's going on in a place, can give us information on the politics, the economic systems, the social opportunities that exist, the environment. All of that can help sometimes eliminate possible answers that could be wrong for you. It's laggy. I apologize that it's laggy. I'll try to work on that. I don't know how much we can do. It looks like right now we have over 2,000 people on, which is just, that's honestly crazy. All right. Next thing we're going to review for the unit is data. And remember, we have qualitative and quantitative data. So I'll quick put this up. Remember here, qualitative, not easily measured. It is going to have a variety of different things that could happen because oftentimes it's opinion. It's in word form. Quantitative, it's not up for debate. It's a number. It's a fact. So this is just set. This is definitely something that is up for not necessarily debate because it's just there. Like the GDP per capita. This would be an example of quantitative data. So that'd be that one. All right. Is this quantitative or qualitative data? Talk to people around you. Also, too, I apologize for not being able to get it through all the questions. I will get to them when we get to the Kahoot. It'll be a lot easier. But maybe, this review will take too long. I don't know. We'll see. This is the first time doing this. So, all right, got a bunch of people. It is quantitative. Yes, this is quantitative. So this would not be qualitative. This is quantitative. This is a population pyramid. We're going to talk more about them tomorrow for Unit 2. So more about population pyramids then. All right, qualitative or quantitative, a survey on how students feel about the quality of their school lunch. What do we got? Quantitative or qualitative? All right, trying to catch up on the channel a bit. Oh, got a new member. Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Cool. Yes. Thank you for becoming a member. Very kind of you. Very kind. Thank you for the super chat. That is also very kind. All right. Trying to catch up again. What do we got? It is not quantitative, not quantitative, not quantitative. Those might have been from the last one. It would be qualitative. Yes, it is qualitative. All these are qualitative. This would definitely be opinions. So how you feel about it definitely could vary. All right. Next one's for vocab. For time, I'm not going to read through all of them. A big thing, though, to realize here when we're talking about remote sensing, GPS, geographic information systems, these are all geospatial technologies. So we're observing our world and we're looking at data. So like GIS is going to be able to layer data so we can see different patterns and themes. Remote sensing, we're going to be looking at an area without actually being there. And GPS is going to be used for directions. Again, too, saw some people asking where some of this stuff's coming from. All I've done is gone through the CD and I've tried to take out the things from the CD and I'm just reviewing it with you guys. So if it's in the CD, it's in this. And I'm trying to just make sure that we're focusing on exactly what we need right now. All right, these are different ways of gathering information. I'm not going to go over all of them. Definitely make sure you have spent a little bit of time with a photographic interpretation and landscape analysis. You will be doing that on the test. You're going to be looking at different satellite images. You're going to be looking at different photos of different places and observing the cultural landscape. So these are just different ways in which we can collect data. For time, I'm not going to watch this video. Originally, we were going to. We're already 20 minutes in. So I'm going to skip this. But this is remote sensing. It's a great way. In this video, it's showing time lapses of deforestation, a term from Unit 5. And we can see how the forest has been replaced with agricultural production. One thing, too, the census is, well, actually, talk to people in the chat. Is it qualitative or quantitative? The census is going to come up. We use the census a lot in this class because it provides such invaluable data that can help us on a personal level for businesses. All of this is great to be able to help us understand. All right, we're going to skip the video. Sorry. So let me know, qualitative, quantitative. Also, too, if I have missed things, I will definitely be going back through the chat. Shout out to Mr. Johnson's third period. Shout out to you. Thank you very much. Very kind. All right. It is quantitative. Yes. Census would be quantitative. All right. Different scales use data in different ways. So real quick, just to go through this, because this is a component of the CD of when we get questions on a test, you might have to answer a question, particularly FRQs, in a way that would connect to like an individual or a business or connect to a government. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time reviewing that so you can have a good understanding there. All right. So for personal, I have the example here of a person looking to find a house. And so they're going to look at maybe a Redfin, a Zillow. They're going to look at what homes are on the market. They're going to then look at crime data to see, is that neighborhood somewhere where they want to live? They could look at the education systems, the schools. They could look at weather patterns to plan out their day. All of this would be examples of the personal, of an individual using data. For a business, they could do a variety of things. They could look to see if we want to open up a new store somewhere. Maybe I want to look at a global map and a national scale of analysis and try to figure out which countries have the highest income. Now, for a business, this might only be so helpful of identifying, okay, maybe this is the country, but I need really more data. And to do this, we want to change our scale and scale of analysis. So I could change to my next scale, which would be kind of zooming in now. Now I'm looking at a national scale here. I'm looking at just the United States, and I'm looking at a regional scale of analysis. So here I can gain more insight. If I have a particular topic that I'm selling or content that I'm selling or whatever may be, product, I want to maybe find the market which would work best for my type of product. And so here we can kind of see exactly a little bit more detail. And if we want to get even more particular, that was meant to be centered, we could change our scale. Again, here it's actually a national scale, but the scale of analysis is local. We're looking here at our different counties. And now I can see exactly maybe where I would want to locate in the United States. So here's another example too. As we change our scale and scale of analysis, notice the data here is more general. As I continue to kind of change things and I'm looking at the data and my scale different, I'm gaining more and more insight. So all of this would be for business. Real quick in the chat, later we're going to get into scale and scale of analysis. We'll talk about it. So if you're confused, we will get into that. All right, government can use it for a variety of ways as well. Government, remember, we could be talking about a subnational government, which would be something below the actual country, the national government, or the national for like the United States, that'd be Congress or the president. So for example, here I have a population pyramid of Utah. I can see population change over the years. This would be quantitative data. And this could be used to figure out how many schools we need, what laws maybe we should put in effect, what policies we should have. Do we need a hospital? Do we need more retirement homes? How do we need to prioritize our different resources that we have? So these would all connect to the government then. Cool. All right. Next thing, we have a bunch of vocab. I'll put it on the screen so it's easier to see. Again, when we're talking right now, just for time, I'm not going to go super in depth into all the vocab, but it's on here. These are terms that are mentioned in the C that you do want to have an understanding of. Again, that CED is that course exam description, which is focusing on the actual test. I realize, yeah, I am going fast. Maybe I'll poll people at the end of today. Maybe we need to change stuff in the future if we do both the Kahoot and this, or maybe you guys would just rather do the Kahoot. So I'm up for changing things. However, this is the first time I'm doing it this way. My goal is just really to provide as good a value as possible for you and maximize your time. All right, I am going to spend a little bit of time on this next one, which is distance decay, because this could come up in a variety of different units kind of as well. This is that effect that distance is going to have on you and your interactions with different places. So the farther away we are from something, the less likely we are to interact with it. So on there, you got the heart there. Distance decay would say, well, that long-term relationship, is it really going to work out? Yeah, I don't know on that one, because the farther we are apart, less likely we are to interact. Now, on the other hand, our next concept would say, hey, no, you got something. Don't worry. Time-space compression. Because of technological advances, we can actually then see these interactions. Well, they could still work. We have a lot of technology now. You can Zoom, you can FaceTime, you can play Fortnite together, and I don't know, go crank some 90s. You can do whatever you want. And it's a way to stay in touch. So time-space compression, our interactions now, it's easier than ever before to interact with places farther away. So we don't see distance decay happening as much. It's starting to decrease. Cool. All right, moving on to our next part here, which is our perspectives, where we're looking at the environment. And we have two main perspectives that you want to be familiar with: environmental determinism and possibilism. So remember, environmental determinism is going to believe that the environment is really setting the limits on society, that you can only do so much, the environment's going to limit you. Possibilism, on the other hand, is going to say, hold on. People are pretty smart. We have a lot of agency. We as individuals can accomplish a lot. There could be a food shortage, and we could try to figure out ways to create more food to be able to help us out. So possibilism is going to say we can adapt and we can adjust. And it's this human environment interaction that's occurring. So definitely be kind of familiar with both of those terms. Another thing too to be familiar with, since we're on the topic of our human environment interaction, is renewable and non-renewable resources. Just remember, non-renewable resources are things you can only use once. Things like oil and natural gas. Renewable, we can use them multiple times. For example, crops, I can take the seeds, plant crops again. Trees, I can replant. So that would be the difference there between our natural resources, our renewable and non-renewable. Another thing with human environment interaction, and we're getting to the tail end of this unit. So thank you for bearing with me. Hopefully you're getting value out of this. It's fun. I really like this. It's a lot of fun seeing the chat. I wish I could be more interactive right now with you guys, but I will be going back and looking at everything. I know I've missed some super chats. I will definitely be reading all of them. But one thing to note is land use patterns. And this is going to come up throughout this class. Remember, land use patterns are ways we've modified the environment. If you get a question on this AP National Exam that's asking about cultural landscape, or it has a photo and you're doing some photo analysis, look to see what is the land use patterns. How is land being used? We could see, is it agricultural? Are we seeing farms? What type of agriculture is occurring? Commercial stores there you're thinking about. Is it a Target? Is it a Best Buy, a Walmart? What's happening there? Industrial, the manufacturing, production. Recreational is going to be, do they have a lot of parks? Is there football stadiums, different concert halls? That'll all be recreational. Residential is going to be houses. And then we also are going to have like apartments, things of that nature. Again, in Unit 6, we'll talk more about this. We're going to look at density, and we'll talk a little bit more about urban density there. Or transportation. What transportation and infrastructure is being used? And being able to understand land use patterns can tell us a lot. For example, originally I was going to spend more time of doing like breaking down like I do in my own class where we have discussions, but just for time, I'm not going to do that. I want to make sure we're moving at a good pace here. But when we're looking at this photo, there's a couple things that I noticed right away. This is actually from a video that I had. One of the things I can see a lot of hotels. I can see it seems very economically developed. I can see the locations by these mountains. I don't see a lot of residential, like traditional, that people are going to be living here. It looks like things are kind of clustered together as well. This is a tourist area. We can kind of get that vibe. Like once you see, oh, this is a tourist spot that a bunch of people travel, it kind of makes sense. When I'm looking at this, all of these are a lot of hotels that people would stay at. It looks like a very nice area. So sometimes we can see some insights into a place by understanding what's happening with our buildings and our land use patterns. All right, up next is scale and scale of analysis. Two very important concepts. Remember, when we're looking at this scale, we are talking about what is the ratio of the distance on a map to the Earth's surface. Scale of analysis is data. How is it collected, organized, and presented? That is the focus that we're looking at when we're talking about it. And generally, you're going to see local, regional, national, global. You could see continental. You could also see subnational, maybe. Subnational, remember, would be anything that's under the nation. So what we're going to do is look at a couple different examples of this. So this would be a local scale here. So notice very local. We are looking at very little of the Earth's surface, but we have a lot of detail in what we are observing here. We also too have a reference map. For connecting back to earlier in this unit, notice this is just showing us directions. It's just showing us the place, the names. This would be a reference. Up next is a regional scale. So here we can see different regions of California. Region can have a variety of things. In fact, California is a region of the United States. So each of the states are their own kind of region. Or we could look at like the West Coast, the Midwest. Those could also be regions. So depending on what we're looking at, this one could be presented in kind of a variety of different ways. Up next, I tried to kind of highlight, should have zoomed in more, just focusing on Canada for looking at a national scale. I should have cut out the United States here. But a national scale here, we're looking at just one country, one nation, one state. Global, we're looking at the whole world. So we're looking at everything all at once. So this would be a global scale. All right. In the chat, let me know, what is our scale and what's our scale of analysis? Let's do a little bit of interaction because we are almost done with this unit here. So what is our scale and scale of analysis? What do we got? All right. I'm seeing global scale. This is a global scale. That is correct. National scale of analysis. Yes, it is a national scale of analysis. Remember, when we're looking at this, we're focusing on how for scale of analysis, how data is organized, how it's being presented, how it was collected. Here, the boundaries, if we put this back up, the boundaries do matter. This data, this life expectancy is specific to each of these different states. All right, here we go. Another one. Scale of analysis. What do we got? So changing it up, practicing these concepts. You'll also see this in our Kahoot later as well. What do we have? Trying to catch up. To scale. I think that was from the last one. So we have national. National could be one of these. National and local. Okay, national and regional. I would argue national and regional. We are looking at our country here, so the United States, and we're looking at the different states, so regions within different geographic things happening inside of our country, how we have our states organized. All right, here we go. Another one. Scale of analysis. What do we got? One thing to notice too, if you picked up on it, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. All this is the same data. And hopefully you're kind of seeing as we're waiting for some answers here. As I've changed our scale or scale of analysis, we've gotten more and more details on everything. So hopefully you can kind of see that as we're changing. We do have a local scale of analysis. We are looking here by county. So this would be a local scale of analysis. Scale is national. Yep. If we're looking at national, that would be the scale. So scale national, scale of analysis, though, is county. It would be our local. Shout out to Mr. Castro's second and third hour block. You're perfect timing right by that question or the answer I was looking at there. So shout out to you guys. Okay, let's go on to our next one here. What is our scale and scale of analysis? What do we got? Hopefully this practice is kind of helping you with the difference between all these. Looking here, we have a global scale. Okay, some people are saying I'm seeing a lot of global and national scale of analysis. Is this a national scale of analysis? So I'm seeing a lot of people saying global, national. Think about it for a little bit. Remember, scale of analysis, how data is organized. If we're looking at it, I'm seeing both. Both of these I would argue, are be global and global. Now, the reason why we're looking at the entire world here, so our scale, it's the entire globe, but notice how the data is not specific to an individual country. It's not specific to an individual area. It's kind of generic. We are looking here at the migration of birds. So we're looking at the migration of birds around the world. It's not focusing on one border or one country. It's just looking at where birds are migrating across the world. So I'd argue global and global for that one. Okay, cool. All right, another one here. We are almost done with the scale and scale of analysis questions. This is a little bit different. I would argue there could be some different ways to maybe take this one. But now we're looking at a data set. So we're not looking at a map. Again, on our AP exam, you might get stimulus components. And by might, I mean you will in different ways. Oh, I just hit 200,000. Hey, 200,000. Woo! Thank you. Thank you very much for pointing that out. That is phenomenal. That's awesome. Oh, I saw another person posted too. Thank you. Thank you very much. God, that's crazy. That's honestly crazy. I don't know. I don't know how to react fully to this live. It seems weird. Like just yesterday, I was just making videos for my students. I still teach. Was at school all day today. I still just love doing it, and it's cool. It's cool. I'm glad that this is providing value, and thank you guys for the support. It really does mean a lot. Okay, what we're seeing here, we got a couple things. I would argue when we're looking at this going back to this, I would say subnational scale here and local for both. The reason why I would argue this is we're looking at individual places here. So we're just talking about cities within the United States. And it's also organized by those cities. So we're not looking at the entire country. We're not looking at different regions here. We are looking at cities, different places inside the United States. And then we're focusing, the data is organized by those cities. So that's why I would have local there. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm glad your teacher loves me. I'm sure your teacher is awesome. Thank them for the support, and make sure, honestly, thank your teacher for all that they're doing. So it's great. I can come on here and I can teach you guys and help you guys out, but your teachers, you got to thank them. They do a ton of work. It's a lot, and they are phenomenal. All right. Almost done with the scale stuff. We've already talked about this, but remember, don't mix it up. It's really easy in your mind to mix this up. Small scale zoomed out, large scale zoomed in, and it shows different amounts of details. So details are important. That's one of the things to remember there. That's what we're seeing. So if we're looking at this, here we go. We can see two different maps. Is this a small or large scale? Trying to figure out. I'll give you like 5 seconds. You wish you had me. I don't know. My students, I give a lot of homework. We do a lot of tests. Actually, I don't know if I give that much homework, but I have been told my class is hard. But the goal is to prep you for that AP exam. So it's worth it. It's all worth it. All right. Yes. So when we're looking at this, I've seen a lot of people saying large scale, big one, large, small. Remember too, I can't see which ones you're referencing, but the one on the right, or sorry, left, it's mirrored, would be a larger scale. And then the one on the left would be a smaller scale. Again, we're looking at the detail that we are observing. Cool. All right, this is the last stuff for our unit here. And this is regions. And regions are definitely going to be on this exam. Remember, we have a couple different types of regions that you want to be familiar with. And so spend time making sure that you can identify regions and that you can understand why they are what they are. So formal or uniform, that's one thing to focus on too. There are different names that can be used for these, but formal and uniform, we have this area that has very common characteristics, defined boundaries. An example would be a country. So, for example, the United States is a formal region. Minnesota, Texas, California, Florida, all of those are formal regions. Functional or nodal is going to have that center point. So I have the picture there of the coming soon to a neighborhood near you. And actually, if I quick make it a little bit larger for you, you can see like the existing area versus the new one. That region is being created around a store and what they'll deliver to. So that would be a functional or nodal region. Perceptual, remember, or the vernacular is going to be in our minds. So it's different ways in which we think about things, process it, and be able to kind of debate. Like the Middle East, I have an example there because there's debate on what countries are in the Middle East and what countries are not. But we all understand, oh, this is what the Middle East is. So that's something to have an idea of, is the different types of regions. Okay, that's it for the review of all of the different stuff from the CD. We're going to do the Kahoot now. I originally only wanted that to be 30 minutes. It was a little bit longer. I'll post a poll in a second. Was this helpful? Was this not? Would you rather just do the Kahoot? Would you not? These will get uploaded too, so you will be able to see these. We're going to shift gears and go to the Kahoot.